There are 4 principles of Stoicism that I try to keep in mind every day. The first is that the happiness or fulfillment or peace that you're seeking, it's not out there. It's within you. Epictetus says this is the chief task in life, to bring order to your emotions and bring them under your control. When you feel angry or anxious or fearful, step back and ask yourself, is this feeling helping me? Is this feeling making me a better person? If the answer is no, then let it go. Don't let it control you. You're in charge. You're the CEO of your own life. Don't let your emotions push you around like a puppet. That's the first principle of Stoicism, bringing your emotions under your control. Second principle of Stoicism is focus on what you can control, not what you can't. There's a story about a king who had 2 baskets of figs, one with ripe figs and one with unripe figs. And he was complaining to his friend about how the figs were too unripe. They weren't sweet enough. They weren't juicy enough. And his friend said, well, why don't you pick the figs that are ripe? Why don't you just focus on those and enjoy those figs? And the king said, but I want the figs to be sweeter and more juicy. And his friend said, well, then plant fig trees and tend to them and care for them. And maybe one day you'll have the figs that you want. The point is, there are some things that are in our control and there are some things that are not in our control. What's the right course of action? Focus on what you can control and do you and worry about what you can, because worrying about the things that are not in our control, it's a form of helplessness. It makes us feel like a victim. It makes us feel like we don't have any power over our lives. But if we focus on what we can control, if we focus on our thoughts, our actions, our reactions, then we start to feel empowered. We start to feel like we're in charge of our lives. And that's the second principle of Stoicism, focusing on what you can control, not what you can't. The third principle of Stoicism is to remember that things could be worse. Things always look darkest before they turn completely black. This is a quote from Naval Rovich. I think about this quote, whenever I'm feeling down or depressed or anxious, things could be worse. I could be in a worse situation. I could be experiencing something much more painful or difficult than what I'm experiencing right now. And that puts my problems in perspective. It helps me to not take myself too seriously. It helps me to remember that this too shall pass. And that's the third principle of Stoicism, to remember that things could be worse. And the fourth principle of Stoicism is to take responsibility for everything that happens in your life. This is a quote from Marcus Aurelius. He says, everything that happens to you is your choice. Everything that happens to you is a result of your choices, your thoughts, your actions, your reactions. You choose how you respond to things. And that's what life is really about. It's not about what happens to us. It's about how we respond to what happens to us. Do we respond with anger or do we respond with acceptance? Do we respond with fear or do we respond with courage? The choice is ours. And that's the fourth principle of Stoicism, to take responsibility for everything that happens in your life. These are the 4 principles of Stoicism that I try to keep in mind every day.